Hello, hello. You have joined us at the Frame of Mind Coaching Podcast, and I am Kim Ades, president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching. Today, I have a very formidable guest. He's a good friend of mine, a past client of mine, but I don't know. I feel like he's a kindred spirit. David Schnurman, welcome.
I think you can call us best friends at this point.
Okay, let's do that. David Schnurman.
You're my closest friend in Toronto.
There you go. The only friend in Toronto, I think, but that's okay. So David Schnurman is the president and founder of a company called Lawline. Do you want to explain to people what that is?
Yeah, Lawline has been, we just celebrated 11th year since I started law school. And we are now the largest provider of online continuing legal education for there's 1 million attorneys in the United States that need to keep their license and need to keep active. And we make it super easy for them to do it on their phone or on the computer.
So this is for all of the United States. Do you do this for any other countries? Is it just for lawyers?
So we also do it for accountants, and that's for Further Ed is the accountant product. And we sort of dabble in Canada. And one of the reasons I'm actually abroad in Barcelona right now is we're looking beyond the United States into Europe. And so there are a couple opportunities that we're pursuing out here as well.
Okay, well, we're going to get back to the Barcelona part of your life, but can we just go back? How did we meet? I think that I was the facilitator of one of your EO retreats or something like that.
Yeah, so EO has been a huge part of my life. And I think this was like the second or third year into EO. And Bruce Eckfeld invited you to our retreat. That's and right. You came from Toronto. And I remember, and you did an interview with me ahead of time. And I remember thinking, wow, she really knows what she's doing. And then on the retreat itself, I really, in my mind, connected with you. Just like, I felt like everything you were saying really was exactly made sense. And I was right sort of in that sweet spot, it felt like. But you remind me, and I always forget, even with that, I didn't call you until about 3 years later.
That's right.
to work together.
That's right. So, and I also remember that for those of you who don't know, by the way, EO stands for Entrepreneurs Organization, and it's a peer executive, how would you describe it, business group?
It's a peer-to-peer entrepreneur group where the biggest thing is there's non-solicitation policy. So you can't sell anyone else, and you need to have a minimum of $1 million in revenue to join, which was the requirement 30 years ago, and it hasn't changed. It probably should be increased at this point, just because times have changed a little bit. Yeah. But the whole thing is you have, once you hit a certain level, you have different problems than just a startup entrepreneur.
So yes, I was invited and I did interview everyone. And one of the people I interviewed was David. And at the time, he just had 2 newborn twins. And,
wow, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and he had a lot on his plate. But of all the people in the room, he was like the most, I would say, happy, the most easy, the most kind of satisfied with life. And I found that very surprising and notable. And so, yes, he called me 3 years later. So what was the trigger there at that time for you to call me? Like it's been a while. It's been a long time ago. What was the thing that made you call, and why me? You're exposed to lots of coaches.
So I just learned that my top 3 salespeople who were making the most revenue were actually stealing from me. And it went as far up as the COO. And I ended up firing the COO and the top 3 salespeople overnight. And then the next week became also the sales manager of a 20-person sales team, and realizing, not only was I in a situation that I had to deal with, what led me to that situation that I allowed that to happen. And I knew I needed some help.
And there are lots of coaches out there.
Why you?
Yeah. Why me? And how did you make a choice? It's an important question because the people who are listening, a lot of them are exactly like you. They're highly driven individuals, entrepreneurs who are running multi-million-dollar companies, and they may or may not be looking for a coach. But the question is, how do you choose one?
It's an important question because I am a distrustful person in these situations.
Is that because maybe you were a lawyer first?
No, it had nothing to do with being a lawyer. Honestly, people say that, but I never even practiced. But I'll say this, not distrustful, just skeptical. And by the way, I'm not as much skeptical as the coach, but I'm skeptical as much about myself. So my fear is to invest whatever money it is, but significant amount of money, and not actually get value, like because I don't put the effort in, or they tell you good things, but nothing's really actionable. So that was really what, as you know, I was scared of. And so actually at the time I was deciding between you and hiring a coach from Jack Canfield's coaching program, and they seemed pretty good too. I just didn't know them from a hole in a wall.
Right.
And the thing that sold me on you and continues to sell me on your coaching style and everyone I talk to is the journaling, because I felt that if I journal every day and you're reading my journals every day, I'm getting like my money's worth 100 times over, because I don't have to waste my energy in the weekly calls getting up to speed. And
Right.
of course, that journaling became a big part of the foundation of the book. So that's pretty cool.
So let's go there. So you're journaling, you've got lots of things going on. Your company is going through kind of, let's say, a bit of an upheaval. You have, at that point, 2 kids. And I think at the time, Kelly, your wife, was pregnant, or maybe not.
Jonah's 5 years old now. So
No, she wasn't pregnant.
Yeah,
but you had a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. If I remember correctly, one of the biggest issues was like, so how do I find people I can trust in my organization? How do I hire my second in command? What is my role as a leader? And there was just a lot of turmoil going on. And as you were journaling, you were writing down your thoughts, your fears, your feelings, your beliefs, your emotional state, all of that stuff. Everything went into it.
Yes. So what's the question?
The question is this. So fast forward to, when did you decide to go back and look at your journals?
So I always had the desire since I can remember to write a book. I just get so much value from self-help books, and I always love sharing the knowledge that I get. And so to me, it was just a natural extension, because books, if you get that 0.00001%, which I still believe I will get someday, you can really have a bigger impact than anything, because you can sell millions of books. So, and I've gotten from a $15 book, I've gotten more return on my investment than any coach, believe it or not, just because that's how it is. So I thought, well, when I was starting to write a book, I was kind of lost in where to go. So I'm like, all right, let me just do it. And so I went into your software, and I, with your help, figured out how to print it all out. And then I also use another software that I printed all out. And then I also have physical books. And it was almost like a procrastination thing from having to write the book. Let me read my journals first. And, but I'm so glad I did, because there are so many things that I forgot that I'm like, oh my God, that was painful. I can't believe, not only can I not believe that I went through, I can't believe that was me in the way I was writing and thinking.
So one of the things you did was you codified your book. What did that, what was that process like? How did you do it? And what did you discover?
I created an Excel sheet. And I started to put together, when I saw pretty rough, I was reading it and I saw, okay, deciding if I should fire my COO, or if I should hire somebody, or not knowing how to handle this leadership situation, I would write a theme like, okay, let me take that snippet where that is in a Word document that I have, I would bookmark it, and then I would say leadership challenge. And so it took months to do this. I wasn't doing it full time. And then by the time I was done, and I'm sure I missed some things, I just did the best that I can. I had this Excel document of 22 pages of all these different themes. And then I went again through it again, and I was able to keep codifying it and generalizing it as much as I could. And then I finally ended up with like 8 to 10 pretty big themes, and I kept going and kept going. Then I finally was able to turn that into 2 basic themes, which was lack of confidence in myself and lack of focus. And everything essentially stemmed from those 2.
So I want to pause here, because, you're a successful entrepreneur. Why would you lack confidence?
Because I'm a person. Every single
Good
person.
Good answer.
It's the truth. It's just, you show me somebody who has confidence 100% of the time, and I'll show you a liar. And so maybe if you're somebody who's super comfortable staying exactly where you are in life. You could be 100% confident and you could be happy if that's where you're at, but I've always wanted to grow and do more and explore more. And it's part of the game. When you get yourself out of your comfort zone, you're going to lack confidence because you don't know what you're doing. So it's part of the game, but it also just like, leadership, God, like just leading other people is so challenging. And you're constantly, second guessing and wondering what could have been. And so it took me a while to accept that. And, partly it was working with you, partly it was reading books, partly it was even just writing my book, accepting that like, I don't have to be 100% fearless all the time. In fact, I shouldn't be. That's part of the fun.
Right. So you
doesn't mean it's easy.
Not easy. You ended up taking that as your baseline, like the stories that were written there, but also the way that you codified it and broke it down or boiled it down to 2 themes. And you ended up writing this book.
There it is. Yep.
There it
fast
is.
Forward mindset. Yep.
Fast forward mindset.
And
so guys, make a note of it. Write it down. Find this book. Buy it. It's amazing. It's good. Buy it. Okay. So what's the book about?
Yeah. So it's super cool because like just having a book in general, it's just like it's almost like a stamp, a freeze frame that you are totally satisfied in life. And you've written a book before, just like you put at least some of your knowledge out there in a way that you feel proud of, and you just can never be taken away from you. So like when you put that book up in front of me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
I saw that in your expression. You're like, wow, she has my book. Of course I have your book.
So it's called the fast forward mindset because when you think about it, most people want to fast forward the impact that they have on the world around them, or they have this, story in their head is generally that story is up here and they're over here. And I talk about impact instead of achievements because if you actually have to boil it down to most people, it's the impact that drives you so much more than the acquisition of wealth. Because the truth is, once you achieve a certain point where you actually have a nice life, which I do and I did, you sort of get a little bit lazy, or not lazy, just comfortable. Complacent, but rightfully so. And so the only way, to really push yourself more is like, well, is this the impact that I thought I was going to have on the world around me? And so the book is about a 3-step formula on how to fast forward your impact. And by the way, it's about how to be more fearless and focused to do that. And also, by the way, it's not just my opinion. I use a lot of research that intersects with my experiences, but I think science is important just to give credibility. So I back it up with, different research that's out there, but I also be very clear, this is my experience. And it's as you know, it's a story. It's done by personal stories throughout the book. So it's not just dry sort of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, it's not boring. And stories that I lived through with you, which is kind of cool and interesting. As I read the book, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah. So 3 steps. Tell us what those 3 steps are. 3 steps.
So step 1 is about how to build confidence to get out of your comfort zone. And there's several things in that, but the one thing I'll share right now is the most important thing is to take action. And the only way you'll take action is if you have confidence. And one of these, there's 4 parts to that, but one of the things that I say, and again, this is from all the best books that are out there on success and growth, is never to label the outcome of a situation as good or bad. Because as soon as you do that, you're going to be afraid to take that action to get out of your comfort zone. And the phrase that I use in the book, that is not my phrase, is good thing, bad thing, who knows? And so my number one job in this first step is to give somebody the confidence to take action, whether it's move to Barcelona, write a book, start a business, leave their job, do a podcast, anything. And, and so a lot of entrepreneurs, actually, that's not an issue because we're like visionaries. And so we'll take action on 100 things at once. And but for some people who are just stuck where they are, they can't move forward. And so step 1 really dives into that.
So would you say that some entrepreneurs take action without a plan, or they just start and they're like, okay, we'll see where we end up, and they kind of sometimes take action a little bit thoughtlessly?
Yeah. So from my experience, most entrepreneurs, most of the time, take actions without a full-fledged plan. And that's where step 2 and step 3 comes in. And that
So
was,
tell us
that was,
about those.
yeah. So step 2 is, it's called a nip fear in the bud. So when you take action without a plan, like, move to New York, for example, because you're trying to start a business in New York, which was the guy who filmed our program, a lot of my video footage for a year. He moved from Nashville. And then as soon as he got there, he's like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And so generally you have this emotional component as soon as you get out of your comfort zone that you just want to get right back in it. And you want to like just stop whatever you're doing. And sometimes it could be writing a book and you get confused during the book and you're just like, I don't know, no one's going to buy this book anyway. Why am I wasting my time? It can be anything. And so step 2 is how to prevent yourself from falling back into your comfort zone by nipping the fear that you have in the bud. And I break that down in the book.
Okay. So how to get over fear?
How not to get over fear, because you can't get over it, but how to accept it and sort of overcome it, how to have it how to accept it and not have it push you back to your comfort zone. And again, that will get you further, but unless you get to step 3, you're going to end up back in your comfort zone pretty soon.
So I want to pause for a minute because there are a couple of things here. One of in the nip fear in the bud, the N stands for you're not alone. And I think that's extremely powerful because especially with entrepreneurs, leaders, they often feel isolated. They often feel like they carry the burden of responsibility on their shoulders alone. I coach so many leaders who are in that boat, who would describe it exactly that way, who say, other people don't understand me. They're not in it with me. Yes, I have a team, but at the end of the day, it's on my shoulders. And the idea that actually you're not the only one is really powerful. It's really powerful to think that, even something as simple as divorce, when you are going through divorce, and I've been through divorce, you think, oh my God, like this is hard and I feel alone. But 50% of the population has been through divorce. But when you're going through it, you don't think of that.
And as an entrepreneur specifically, you're never like every successful person that you look up to has gone through what you're going through, that feeling of that you've hit that wall and you can't break through it, whatever that wall is. And I got to tell you, like, for me, it happens at the least times I expect it. I wake up in the morning, it's going to be a great day. All of a sudden I am so stressed and I'm not even sure why I'm stressed. And it takes me a while. And part of the I is I will get through it. And part of that, one of the strategies to get through it is to start journaling so you can figure out what it is going on through your head.
What a great idea.
And these things are so, again, as research and science backs up the importance of doing things like that. And it is so important. And it's helped me so many times because I'd rather somebody 100 times over, you need to experience as much as you can. In order to experience as much as you can, you have to take that action and nip fear in the bud.
So I want to go back to something else you said, which is one of the things that stops people from taking action is a lack of confidence. But I want to take a moment and kind of break that down a little bit further. So what actually stops people from taking action? And we can describe it as a lack of confidence, but if we kind of dig a little deeper, it's really a reflection of their beliefs. And their beliefs kind of say, hey, I'm not sure I have it in me. I'm not sure I can manage. I'm not sure I deserve this. I'm not sure I'm experienced enough, educated enough. I'm not sure I'm a good enough leader. I'm not. And that's what it sounds like to not have confidence. But those beliefs could erode your confidence. Those beliefs are really what stand in the way of you taking action, especially action that is aligned with the desire. So sometimes people are fearful and they take action and it doesn't lead to their outcome or desire or the result they're looking for. And essentially that's because they're kind of forcing themselves through it and their beliefs still aren't lined up with their desire. But that's really the source of that lack of confidence. So sorry, I just wanted to break that down because I think that's really important for people to understand, like, where does a lack of confidence come from? And it comes from these deep-seated beliefs that you've been kind of sometimes you grew up with them, sometimes they're messages you receive, sometimes it's just part of your DNA, but that's really what prevents you from taking action.
That's a great point.
You talk about something called playing the part. What does that mean?
So, when you want to nip fear in the bud, sometimes what you need to do is play the part like the actor or actress on stage who all they care about is giving the best performance of their life, and they don't care about what anyone else thinks of them. And one of the biggest challenges a lot of entrepreneurs face and a lot of people face is what their parents think of them. And it's not just their parents, but the parents is the biggest figure in their lives. And a lot of times your parents support you, but sometimes they don't. And not because they hate you or they want the worst for you. Generally, it's because they want to protect you, and they don't want to see you get hurt for whatever reason. And I struggled with that with my father throughout most of my life. And it's funny now that he's read the book and he's seen what I wrote. It's like, it's this kind of crazy psychology now where like when he's giving me doubt or whatever, I'm like, Dad, I'm going to play the part. Sorry, buddy. Like, thank you for your advice. And I'm going to do what I want to do. So there was a time, and it's in the book and you were part of it, where I tried to start a separate company. And to be honest, I didn't really put a lot of thought into it in the right way. And
that entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yeah. Then I took one of my key employees with me, and just long story short, after a couple of weeks, it just wasn't going where I thought it would. And my dad walked in after I hadn't seen him for about a month, and he just looked at me like I was losing my mind and I was crazy. And it just took that look. That's it. And like the phrase, "Don't you think you're moving too fast?" And it was done. Like I couldn't go any further. Like, and I maybe I was looking for an excuse, whatever that was. But the worst part for me was not about the business. It was about the employee who left his job in my company to help me start this. And I was kind of didn't know what to do about it. And I was talking to you on the phone or through journaling. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Everyone's going to think I'm a failure. I'm terrible. And you said to me, like, what would you do if everybody thought you were a moron? That was an easy answer for me because I do have that confidence in myself. Like that wouldn't bother me at all because I know I'm not. And then you flipped it. You're like, what would you do if everyone thought you were a genius? I'm like, well, if everyone thought I was a genius, I guess I would have to play the part as a genius because I wouldn't want to let them down. And you're just like, well, why can't you just show up every day and play the part of a genius for yourself? And when you said that, I was like, oh my God, it's not about what my dad thinks of me or about what Kyle thinks of me. It was all about what I thought of myself all along. And so that's what playing the part is. And so I break down
yourself.
It's about not being concerned about what others think of you, than being that fearless, whether it's an entrepreneur or it can be whatever author, parent, and just constantly telling yourself that. And by the way, in the book, for each step, I'm really proud of the worksheets that I put together at the end. They're essentially planning tools that are really simple to do, that actually take all these principles and allow you to answer questions to help you go through playing the part and all those other things.
So I just want to stay on this point for a minute. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of the times people are paralyzed because they have a fear about what people will think of them. And I always find that very interesting because I can't tell you, even in my own family, with my kids, with my husband, I say, people don't actually care that much. And it's not to say that in a negative way, but a lot of people are, they're paying attention to themselves. They have their own fears and their own worries, and you're not the primary area of their concern. Yeah. And in a way, that idea that no one's really paying that much attention to your success or failure. And if they do, it's really fleeting and it doesn't actually matter all that much.
Well, one of my favorite lines is, when you're 20, you're so concerned what everyone thinks of you. When you're 40, you don't care what anyone thinks about you. And when you're 60, you realize nobody's thinking about you at all because they're thinking about themselves. Exactly.
Okay, so go to step 3. What's your step 3?
Yeah, so step 3 is a part where, so in my business, I took a lot of action, but after about 7 years of doing that, it only got me so far and the business sort of plateaued. And what I realized what we were missing in the business was focus. So step 3 is find your focus. And there's 2 real key components that, from my experience in running several marathons and from the research that I put out there, was two key components I was missing in finding my focus for my business. Number one was making a commitment and keeping it. And there was a technique that I learned in Success Principles is whenever I make a commitment, including this podcast, which I was rushing to get back to be on time. It was very hard, like I was telling you in the beginning, is you keep that commitment as if your child's life is on the line. And if you break it, it's a very extreme example, but it goes to show you have a lot more control to keep your commitments than not. And there's a story in the book where I share what that means. And I don't need to get into it now, I don't think. And then the second thing, it sounds so simple, but it's something that people forget. They create plans all the time, which I did and used to, but they never attach dates to goals that they have. They said, I want to do all these things sometime in the world. And so in order to find your focus, it's keeping your commitments to things as if your child's life was on the line, and it's attaching dates to goals and not just having a basic general plan. And we hired a coach for my business about 4.5 years ago, and he brought a whole structure and focus that allowed us to move forward. And so if you want to stay outside your comfort zone longer, you need to find your focus, because it will only get you so far through action alone. But with that said, I don't want anyone to ever feel bad about anything, because that's one of the challenges. You wake up every morning, you're like, damn, man, I should have worked out today. I suck. I'm the worst. I was going to write a chapter in my book. You curse yourself out. And so the way I look at it is, again, good thing, bad thing, who knows? You just got to, wherever experience you take is at least some movement forward, so that you can't actually make a wrong move, even though it might feel like it. And that's something I really want everyone to leave this with. Just like wherever you're at is exactly where you should be. And you can always fast forward your impact by essentially gaining more experience.
And starting now. Start now.
Yeah. Or not, or wait 5 years. It's totally okay. Whatever it is, it's fine.
Hey, you sound like a frame of mind coach.
I'm getting there.
Okay. So quick question. So you made a radical decision to pack up your family for a year and move to Barcelona. So David lives normally in New York, and he just decided, okay, we're going. So talk about that decision. Why did you make it? What are you doing there? What are your kids doing there? How does it all work?
So about 5 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I, I put a lot of energy into personal development for myself and my business. And I was starting to feel guilty. And we've talked about this before, where I was like, I'm not really putting a lot of personal energy into my family, and what is our family goals and being a better parent. And I just think there's so much opportunity for this. And I know you're working on some things for this as well. And I ended up reading this book called 3 Questions for the Frantic Family. The author is, I think his name, is famous, Patrick Lencioni, who wrote 7 Dysfunctions.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And he has 4 kids. So he wrote it for essentially what he was going through, and essentially had exactly what I did for business, where you create essentially a mission and a plan and goals, and it applied how you can do that with your family. And so we created a mission statement for our family. And one big component of that was we love to travel. And Kelly and I traveled a ton before we had kids, and obviously with kids not. And so that when that happened, I said, Kelly, we got to figure out a way to travel more with the kids, because time's going to speed by before we know it. And I ended up around that time meeting somebody named David Rich, who it was 4 or 5 years ago, who just did a stint in Barcelona, and he's an EO. And so we're like, oh, that would be so cool. And it took us 4 years of talking about it to actually make it happen. And you talk about it enough, and then if you don't do it, you're like, damn, man, I'm all talk. And it worked out because Kelly had left her job. My kids were graduating elementary school and going to middle school, so they were moving schools anyway. And in my business, we had set up the right structure with the visionary integrator role in Sigal Barnes, who is now the CEO of my business. And we have an executive team set up a structure where I'm now the visionary of my business. So I'm involved in more of the higher level instead of the day-to-day to help move us forward. So those three things combined with that mission statement just made this year the right year to do it.
So you did it. And this is a very important and interesting piece, right? So we often have, let's call them dreams or visions. And then we say, but that's not realistic. That's too hard to make happen. I'm uprooting too many people. I need to have too many things in place. It's just too hard. How am I going to leave my parents who are aging? How, where are my kids going to go to school? Like, how do I actually make something like that happen? It just seems so outlandish, such a far stretch. And so what's exciting to me as I hear you, and again, you're writing daily blogs and I'm reading most of them and keeping in touch with what you're doing, like from the small stuff to the big stuff. It's amazing that you actually put that on your agenda as a realistic, tangible item to actually do. You have 3 kids. It's not an easy feat.
I got a better one. I mean, the book. So by the way, the edition, can you put the cover out again? So I actually updated the cover because I got so much feedback from people who are not entrepreneurs who read the book and got value out of it. So where it says entrepreneur edition on the cover, I took that off. So all new. So even though it's the entrepreneur story, it's not geared just for entrepreneurs. And I got to tell you, Kim, I followed my own, what do you call it? Ate my own dog food. And I followed the steps of the fast forward mindset to get me to Barcelona. And because I said, if this doesn't work for me, how is it going to work for anybody else?
Yeah.
And I actually even put in the book that I'm moving to Barcelona before I was 100% sure that it was actually going to happen, because I wanted to put it out there in the world and force myself to not be afraid to move forward. And so, writing the book is really the truth of what pushed me over the edge, because I had to live what I said. I had to live the example of what the book can help you do by doing the things that I said I wanted to do.
So for those of you who are listening, one of the questions I have for you is, what outlandish dream do you have that you've been putting on the back burner that maybe we should kind of take out of your back pocket and start to examine again?
And right? I'll just say this one thing, and make sure as you're thinking about that dream, it could be things that you want to achieve, but think about the side of the impact that dream is about. So for me, traveling was about the impact my children will have by opening up their minds, by traveling, more of the world. Because I already have done a lot of travel, but they haven't. And by actually living here, and they were at their school today and they're decorating their lockers, they met a lot of their classmates. Not one of them, it's an English-speaking school. Not one of them was from the U.S. It was from all over the world. And I'm just like, damn, they're meeting all these so many interesting kids right now, from all over the world. And that was the impact that really pushed us over the edge of the experience it's going to be for them.
It's a defining experience.
Crazy, like every day. But that's part of the joy of parenting.
The joy of parenting. So I wanna tell you. So you inspired me. I saw you present a TED Talk on a video. So I'm in Toronto and you're in New York. So I saw you. I watched the video and I was like, holy crap! I cannot even believe first of all that he did it, but how well he did on this TED Talk. So guys, look him up. David Schnurman. He's out there. But you inspired me. I was sitting there listening and going, holy crap, if he can do a TED Talk, I can do a TED Talk too. And I ended up reaching out to your coach, your TED Talk coach, and I'm working with her now to create a TED Talk. And
how'd it go, by the way?
Oh, so far it's amazing. It's a process, as you know. It's not an overnight experience. So it's a process. We got very far in the first meeting. I was actually blown away by how fast we moved. But a lot of people want to know, what is it about? And I've been hesitant to say, but I will say that one of my greatest personal passions is helping leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, like that highly driven population, become better leaders by becoming better parents.
Oh, wow.
And so the TED Talk is really about the decisions we make as parents. And I'm really being broad and sketchy about how I'm saying it right now, but
I love it.
It's about how it's our viewpoint of parenting, what we think our role is, and how so very confused most parents are about what their job is.
Yeah, I'm so excited to learn more about that, because I know what one of the answers is we have to let go a lot more than we do. We think our job is to give orders and tell them what to do. And one of the challenges that we have as a parent that our parents didn't have, that we're trying to figure out, is how you handle screen time. Because it's literally, if you get, you want to, sometimes you give in because you need time to yourself, but it's so hard for kids to get out of screen time in a positive state. And so that's, I'm looking for, I'd recommend adding something about that into it.
Oh, there is something about
cool.
that in there. It's like actually a big, huge centerpiece.
Awesome. How cool is Polly when she's taking notes? She has a notepad that's like this big, and she's like writing. I don't know if she took notes for you. And yes. I'm like, how do you write on such a small notepad? And she has such great insights, though. As
she is, and she's delightful. So anybody who's interested in creating a TED Talk, reach out. We'll
she's in the book as well. So
she's in the book as well.
It's super cool to see people who are coaches of mine in the book connecting in the real world. So yeah. I love it. Makes me happy.
So as we round out this podcast, what are your final words of wisdom for our audience?
In general, just, I think it's the most important thing to wake up and just feel content in your life. It's just so important, and not saying to not want to push yourself to get to where you want to be, but just accepting where you are and just knowing that like it's where you're meant to be at this moment, because that is the biggest challenge that we all face. There's always somebody who's better off, whatever that better off means, than you or where you want to be. But just as you always say, there contrast, look to those who want to be where you're at, what you've achieved and where you're at, and use that to give you contrast to realize how grateful you are for the life that you have. And just, keep pushing forward and don't be so hard on yourself.
So 2 things: buy this book. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2 is, if you guys are listening and you're thinking to yourself, I want some of what David Schnurman has, that peace, that joy, that kind of sense of wisdom, that being okay with life, and you're wondering how to get there, I encourage you to come and visit us at frameofmindcoaching.com. and sign up for a complimentary coaching call. That call alone will kind of wake you up, provide you with some awareness that you haven't had before, and start to get you thinking, start to get you reflecting, and give you a little bit of a taste of what the Frame of Mind coaching experience is like. So again, frameofmindcoaching.com. We're happy to talk with you and have you visit. And David, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I love seeing you in Barcelona. I'm looking forward to more blogs and obviously keeping in touch regularly.
As you know, look, to me, the blog is just a journal that I'm putting out there for the world. So I've been doing it for 10 years. It's just my journal. So thank you for helping me push that forward.
Keep it up.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Later.